Good afternoon. I'm Scoot, and I am live in my apartment in downtown New Orleans. And welcome to WWL Radio, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And we want to give you this opportunity to instantly respond to the mayor's press conference and what she just had to say. And I'll review a few of the things that the mayor said. And just like with every situation that involves COVID right now, this is a desperate situation. Now, the mayor described it as being a dire situation, and we have to take action, and we don't have a lot of time, but she is respectful of the little time that it's going to take for businesses to get ready to comply with all of this. So again, if you want to post a comment, I will read some of your questions. And again, I don't know how many questions I can answer um, beyond what we heard, but I took notes here, and I have a general idea of where this is going. But if you want to comment on what the mayor is saying, and you know, all of you know that I've had my disagreements with Mayor Cantrell, but I agree with her on this stuff. She really did point out that the citizens of New Orleans have done the right thing. In fact, I think she said that 70, or maybe Dr. Avegno said that 75% of the adults in New Orleans have had at least one shot. And so that's really good. New Orleans is leading the state by far. And Louisiana is one of the worst places in the country per capita when it comes to infections. So again, if you want to make any comments, I'll try and answer some of your questions. If you're just tuning in, I'm Scoot, live from my apartment in downtown New Orleans, and we just heard Mayor Latoya Cantrell and Jennifer Avegno, public health doctor in New Orleans, talking about COVID and what all this means. Here's a comment from Jeremy. Do you remember the infectious disease doctor that you had on in March of 2020? Straight up said wearing a mask is like trying to stop a flood with a chain link fence. Yes, I do remember that. However, there's new information out, and there are going to be some facial coverings that people are wearing. They're not going to work, and I don't know about the effectiveness of some of the masks that are pretty. Some of the masks that are made more for design than anything else. But I do remember that doctor, and I remember that analogy that he gave. But they've learned new information. I wear the N95 or whatever the mask that you can get online. It's not the top mask that doctors and medical people wear, but it's a credible mask. Now we're learning you can't just put anything over your face and expect that to work. But people are using that to say masks don't work, and that's part of the false misinformation that's going around. Masks do work. All masks may not work. The mayor said the city of New Orleans is doing great. Here's a comment from Shatney. Hats off to Mayor Cantrell of NOLA. This is what she has to do. And I'm not going to get involved in politics here. This is about a public health crisis. So this is where we just team up with the mayor and we do the best we can to get the word out. I'm just going to review some of the things that the mayor said if you missed the press conference. She said, we will continue to stand to protect lives and businesses. She is very much against any shutdown. Thank God. So, look, this is different from last time because we're not expecting any kind of shutdown. But in exchange for not shutting things down, it seems like one of the things that we have to do is accept responsibility. Get the vaccine, wear a mask. And the mayor talked about how important it is to keep businesses open and kids in school. She said that our residents have done the right thing, and more are getting vaccinated. She also said that it's the tourists and people outside of New Orleans that are. She gave the impression that they're mainly responsible for this spread. Here's a comment from Kyle. At this point, get the vaccine and move on. I agree. I talked about this on my radio show. It was a story on Channel 4 Eyewitness News last night. A 15-year-old North Shore girl, very, very sick for 13 days. Her temperature went to almost 104, which, as you know, is really serious. The mother was vaccinated, but the mother thought, hey, my daughter's healthy. She's young. She's 15. She doesn't need the vaccine. Guess what that mother's saying now? Get the vaccine. And she had her son get the vaccine. And her daughter is going to get it as soon as she can after she recovers fully. And so the message is the same from everybody. Get the vaccine. I haven't heard one story from anybody who has said, gee, my mother died, my dad died. I'm sure glad they didn't get the vaccine. Or my dad was dying, my mother was dying, and they kept saying, I'm glad I didn't get the vaccine. Where are those stories? They're nowhere to be heard because they do not exist. So here's what's going to happen. Basically, in New Orleans, now, she said that the city is currently working on protocol, and that's understandable. This will go into effect. She said it's going to kickstart on August the 23rd. The question of Saints preseason games came up. So again, let me just run over this as best I understand it. Bars, restaurants, gyms, fitness centers, sports complexes, concerts, events, adult performance venues. I wonder what she means by that. Casinos. All of these places are going to require you to prove that you're vaccinated. Show your COVID-19 vaccination card, or show the results of a negative test for COVID in 72 hours prior to whatever the event is. So I don't know for sure, but it's my understanding that would go for Saints games. And if that's the case, then at least we have some control. We have control over what we do. But last season we were all victims. We couldn't do anything. Now we can do something. We can make a decision to get the vaccination or to go get tested before 72 hours before kickoff, for example, and then go to a game. That's my understanding. Ron says, so what you're saying is that she's laying the rise in cases at the feet of the very people that support her city. Tourist. Much love and respect to you, Scoot. Thank you, Ron. Yeah, kind of. She did go out of her way to say, we want to protect our tourists. We want to protect the visitors. We want you to come here, but you need to show proof of vaccination. Also, they've talked a lot about, I haven't done this yet, but the mayor talked about this, and there's a lot of talk about LA Wallet. And I haven't done it yet, but it's an LA Wallet app, and it's a way that you can put on your phone that you've got the vaccination. I don't think just taking a picture of the card is acceptable. Now, that may change, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that's the case. But right now, to go into a lot of different places, you're going to have to show proof of vaccination or proof of a negative test within 72 hours. Now, this was breaking right before I went on the air this afternoon, but Better Than Ezra has concerts scheduled for House of Blues tomorrow and Saturday. There is no better place to see Better Than Ezra than House of Blues. It's like the venue was made for that band. And then, of course, the New Orleans connection. They're here in New Orleans, and those guys love playing there. But they announced, House of Blues announced, that to go to the Better Than Ezra concert, you're going to have to prove that you're fully vaccinated or prove that you have a negative test, show results of a negative COVID test within the last 72 hours. So this Vax card, the mayor said, just be prepared to show it. And if you're just tuning in, I'm Scoot, live on WWL Radio Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and we're just reacting to and reviewing some of the things that Mayor Cantrell said in the press conference that ended just a few minutes ago. The mayor said that we just have to keep the economy going forward. We've got to keep the economy open, and we have to keep kids in school. She said Businesses are seemingly more compliant. There's so much more support from businesses, so she thinks there will be more compliance. Kimberly wants to know, I'm completely blown away that this is even a discussion in the United States of America. Kimberly, I'm with you. I don't get it. I don't understand why wearing a mask has become a big deal. You know, most of us have been vaccinated all of our lives. Why suddenly is this vaccine so controversial? You know why, and I know why. And it's a shame that a public health matter for a lot of people has turned into a political stance. Jerry says, so that means every time you want to go somewhere, you have to get tested. Yeah, unless you want to get the shot, unless you want to get the vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson & Johnson. And, you know, I've had a couple people call my show this week and say that there are some, for men, there are some very positive side effects to getting the vaccination. I didn't experience that. But anyway, apparently some people are. Dr. Avegno at New Orleans Public Health said that she wanted to thank the residents of New Orleans for getting us to this point. 75% of the adult population has had at least a single dose of the vaccine. She says the promise of ending the pandemic in the summer of 2021 has faded. The Delta variant is more dangerous. And without being a doctor, when you hear about the variant, it's almost like viruses have a desire to live. They're looking for hosts. They don't want you to die. They want you to live. But they're looking for people who are not protected. And so COVID-19 mutated into the Delta variant and may mutate from there. And this was its way of getting to people and staying alive. If more people would have gotten vaccinated right away, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have given this virus this opportunity to come back. This is the fourth surge. The good news about that is we've been through 3. And we'll get through this. We will. How soon? We don't know. The sooner we put politics aside and do the right thing, and by the way, this is not at all a discussion about those of you who medically cannot get the vaccine or who medically cannot wear a mask. But those are just a few people. And the majority of people not getting the vaccine are not medically exempt. The majority of people not wearing masks are not medically exempt from wearing masks. And there have been messages out there from politicians that have equated wearing a mask to being under government control. Really? I don't understand that. I mean, with the mask on, you can still express your opinion. The government's not muffling your mouth. And no electrical wires or anything controlling your brain. So how is that putting you under government control? Keith says, what do you actually think about the political aspects of this, and what is the division line for this? You know, Keith, I'm disgusted by the political overtones here. It's really sad. And I particularly am bothered by this idea that people feel like they're fighting for American freedom. They're fighting for our freedom, American rights, by not wearing a mask and by not getting vaccinated. And that's ridiculous. Not only is it ridiculous, but it's also an insult to the men and women who died fighting for this country. From our founding fathers, from World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam War, Afghanistan, Iraq, all of these wars. There were people who were dying for our freedom. And somebody's going to compare not wearing a mask or not getting the vaccination to the sacrifice those people made? I think that's an insult to them. Keith says, agreed. Yeah, Keith, it's really sad. Look, we could have political views, and nobody has to change their political views, but let's separate this. We got to this point because of misinformation, and we got to this point because people are believing stuff on social media platforms. Some of them are not even credible, and they're believing the misinformation. And there are certain themes that are running through this that are driving the political narrative. And we all have the power and the opportunity to reject the political aspect of this. This is not about politics. And yeah, there's a problem at the border. There are far too many people coming across the border. There's a crisis at the border. And obviously, there is going to be a percentage of people coming across the border that have COVID. But that is not the reason for this fourth surge. It's an easy excuse to defend the Americans who chose not to get vaccinated or wear masks. Those are the people that put us in this position. But it's been easy to want to point the finger at the border as if that's the source. It is a problem, and it's a growing problem, but that's not the source, the foundation for what created the fourth surge. But again, we come back to politics. You may see video from Franklin, Tennessee. And there was a school meeting last night. And there are parents that are so angry, I would describe them as being like rabid dogs. And they're verbally attacking the medical people. They're verbally bashing, like they're in their face, bashing the people that said, we need a mask mandate in school. And by the way, breaking right after I got off the air, well, just as I was getting off the air this afternoon, is a story from Florida. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is positioning himself for a presidential run in 2024. I mean, that's pretty obvious. He was saying in a very, very tough, assertive way, I will take away the salaries of school officials if any school orders a mask mandate, because he is banning mask mandates. And any school that goes against him, any school district that goes against him, he will withhold salaries of school officials. Well, now he's kind of backing up because he doesn't really have the power to do that. So again, this is a lot of political noise that's just in the air. He's acting like, we can do this, but he can't. And even if he could, I don't think he should. And there's a court in Texas that has also rejected Governor Gregory Abbott's mandate. They're mandating no mandates. They're passing executive orders. They're signing executive orders that ban mask wearing in schools, or in the case of Florida, wearing masks on a cruise ship. So here's a politician saying to a business industry in the private sector, oh, you cannot do that. You can't require passengers to show that they're negative or show proof of a vaccination to board your ship. And a U.S. district judge in Miami said, yes, they can. So DeSantis lost on that front as well. Don't underestimate how political this has become. And this is the sad part for me as an American. I consider myself a patriotic American. And I love this country. I don't love the idea that we don't do a better job of coming together. I mean, there's even a controversy. There's even a social media debate over the new hosts of Jeopardy. I mean, I think this just goes to show you that we're always looking for a debate. We're always looking for something to argue about. I guess that's where we are. And so, as I've said many times on my show, uh, debating and arguing has turned into a recreational sport in America. But I don't see why we can't. This is a great opportunity for us to put politics aside and be Americans and sacrifice for each other. And if you get the vaccination, you might get COVID, but chances are you're not going to the hospital. And chances are you're not going to die. And I think Dr. Avegno said that between 90 and 99% of the cases in New Orleans are the new Delta variant. And the positivity rate in the city is 12.1%. And they're averaging now over 300 cases a day just in New Orleans. It's spreading. And while the mayor's right that a lot of people in New Orleans are vaccinated, a lot of people in New Orleans are getting it. And I don't know that it's just from tourists. Jane says, Scoot, the debates have always been there, but it has been done at the water cooler and at the office and at bars. And now we have social media, so that is where it takes place. Of course, it's a broader audience. It's a good point, Jane. Social media has turned everybody into a reporter, everybody into somebody who can present a commentary. And so I think it's good when the social media platforms hold people accountable for the truth. We can disagree politically, but facts are facts, and the truth is the truth. Dr. Avegno also said, do not try to fake this. Don't try to come up with a fake ID, because guess who gets involved? The FBI. You don't want to be in trouble with the FBI, because that's going to change your life for a long time to come. And the Delta variant has just also made this so dangerous for young people and for kids. And kids under 12 can't get the vaccination. And so we have to get the vaccination so we make sure we don't pass it on to them. I've talked to people who got vaccinated and got COVID. Sometimes they don't even know they have it because it's such a mild case. They're not even symptomatic. But they're not going to get sick and end up in the hospital. And this is the key, man. You listen to these stories from St. Tammany Parish, and it's shocking. And look at the politics of St. Tammany Parish. It's no coincidence that they've got a lot of cases there. I mean, it's not a coincidence. It's a consistent theme. Now, I have to say this. There are a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives who don't buy into the political debate here. The political debate involves extremists. There are extremists on the left. There are extremists on the right. And we just have to come together. I know that sounds like such a corny cliche. We have to come together, but we do. And we need to do it mainly for kids. Here is a question from P. Smith. It's not from tourists. It's from all the people that won't get vaccinated. You're right. The mayor tended to lean toward blaming tourists. But if we're getting so many new cases in New Orleans every day, that can't be from tourists. And everybody who's going to the hospital is not a tourist. Maybe some of them got it from tourists. Well, if you're in the hospital, chances are you're not vaccinated. So get vaccinated. And even though the city of New Orleans has done well with vaccinations, there's nothing wrong with us looking at ourselves. I know this is an election year, and I'm not going to play politics here, but we need to look at ourselves and go, even we could do a better job. Kathy says it's simple, really. You can choose to get vaccinated and carry on, or you can choose to stay unvaccinated and carry on with restrictions. Sounds pretty much like freedom to me. You have a choice. I love that, Kathy. We do have freedom. You have a freedom to get the vaccine or not. But you don't have freedom to go everywhere you want to go if you don't get the vaccine. And again, repeating the major information from Mayor Cantrell's press conference is that for starting, she's going to start to, well, this goes into effect Monday the 16th, but the enforcement doesn't start until August the 23rd. And she says the city will enforce this. But bars, restaurants, you want to go to a bar, restaurant, sports complex, concert, gym, fitness center, adult performing venues, casinos, event venues. In New Orleans, you will have to show your vaccination card. You'll have to prove that you're fully vaccinated or that you've had a negative COVID-19 test within the last 72 hours. Graham says, South Carolina here, love the show. Hey, Graham, thanks for tuning in from South Carolina. Really, I appreciate that. And I hope things are going okay where you are. Because I know that when you're in there some states, it's worse than other states. And there's an arrogance that goes along with, there's an arrogance that's going along with being defiant against mask mandates, against even wearing a mask or against getting vaccinated. Jeff says, do these rules apply to restaurant workers? Example, must be vaccinated or show test. Jeff, I'm not, the mayor didn't really specifically, well, I mean, she kind of did. This is my impression of what the mayor said. That yes, this is for customers, and maybe she did say it somewhere. I mean, she was talking, I took as many notes as I could. I think that's going to be for staff too. I think this is modeled after the plan in New York City and the plan in other countries. And again, I remind you, the good news is this is the fourth surge. So we've been through this 4 times. Well, we've been through this 3 times. So we know how to get out of it. The question is, are we going to do it? And man, think about how positive we were after the vaccines were real. After we could start getting the vaccines, what happened? The numbers went down and down and down and down. But enough people didn't get vaccinated. So then, thanks to the Delta variant, the numbers started going up and up and up. And that's where we are today. There was a doctor who spoke at Governor John Bel Edwards' press conference a couple of weeks ago. And she said, look at this like a boxing match. We're in the 4th round. We had a chance to knock out the opponent in the 1st round. We didn't. We had a chance to knock out the opponent in the 2nd round and in the 3rd round. But the opponent is still around. As long as the opponent's around, the opponent has a chance to knock us out. And if you know anything about boxing, it's, you tell your boxer, if you're a manager of a boxer, you say, look, if you can knock this guy out now, knock him out. Don't let him hang around, because all it takes is that one punch and he's going to knock you out. And I just, I think it's sad that we've gotten to this point where, so many people don't even care about each other. I'm not wearing the mask. I'm not getting the vaccination. I don't care what you think. You might end up in the hospital. I don't care. Gene Simmons of KISS said now he doesn't care about anybody, any of the people who are not vaccinated. He doesn't care what happens to them. Shetney says Governor Charles Baker, who is a Republican in Massachusetts, is doing a great job with the vaccination rates. That's good to hear. Our governor, John Bel Edwards, is doing a great job. When you look at the political noise-making antics of Governor DeSantis of Florida and Governor Abbott of Texas, these are political antics. When you look at that, you've got to feel really good about Governor John Bel Edwards. And Mississippi rates are through the roof. And the female Republican governor of Alabama recently said the surge is blamed directly on the unvaccinated. Jack says people buy all these garbage cures. Buy all these garbage cure-all products on TV, but won't take the shot. How ridiculous can that be? That's true. And look, we've got a great headline on the story on our website, WFUL.com. General Russell Honore says, if you can tolerate what's in Boudin balls, then you can tolerate what's in the vaccine. And think about the crap that so many people put in their bodies. And now they're suddenly worried about what's in the vaccine. Well, I don't know. What's in it? What's in it? That's just a distractive tactic. They don't know it's in a lot of stuff that they put in their bodies. And yet they put it in their bodies. And I forgot who said it, but somebody recently said, oh, I know. Somebody sent me a text claiming to be Dr. Fauci, but it wasn't Dr. Fauci. Said, this is a Dr. Tony Fauci, and I can't believe that you people in Louisiana put all that junk in your bodies and you won't take the vaccine. You know, we're still in Louisiana, we're still under 40%. And we need to be up around 75, 80% to beat this. So it's going to take a while. More people are getting vaccinated, but I don't know, not enough and not soon enough. Again, Mayor Cantrell earlier talked about the medical personnel and the first responders who are overworked, pushed to the limit. It's kind of like with the police. Let me get this from this comment from Michael. Hey, Scoot, what happened to Nolan never reaches 100% vaccination? What happens if Nolan never reaches 100% vaccination? Michael, I don't know that we have to reach 100% because I don't think we will. Because there's always going to be that group of people that can't get the vaccine, and even a smaller group that can't wear the mask. So we don't have to get to 100%. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just transferring the information that I've learned from the medical community. I don't think we need to be 100%, but we need to be better than we are. And the danger is so many people suddenly going to the hospital. If you don't need the hospital right now, see, that might not be a big deal to you. But here's the scary thing. If something happens to you that's not COVID related, if something happens to you or something happens to your kids, and you have to suddenly go to the hospital, there might not be a hospital bed. There might not be hospital personnel to take care of you or your child. And it's because of unvaccinated people. I don't think it's time to ever say, I told you so. And I'll never say that. But, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to say, I've gotten to the point and now I realize I need to get the shot. But I think some people are so personally defined by their political positions that they feel like if they change their mind, they're sacrificing who they are. Here's a comment from Derek. I find it strange that the same people that refuse to get vaccinated because they say it's experimental are the same people running to the hospital to get treated with an experimental drug. That's a good point. That's a good point. And look, the vaccines are about to be FDA approved. The FDA would not, and again, this is part of the misinformation that's spreading on social media platforms that are not credible. And even in some cases on conservative media outlets. There's just been some wholesale lying about this and misleading people. And so you know, again, I think just the greatest frustration is the fact that we won't pull together as a country. Not even for 1 minute can some people put politics aside. Not even for this. And you need to be prepared to show your vax card or to show that you're negative. And this information that's spreading around on social media, it's stuff like you're going to be, impotent. There was a guy who looked like he was about 70 years old at Sturgis, sitting on a bike, telling some reporter, "Well, I heard it's going to make me impotent, or no, I hope it's going to make me sterile. I heard it's going to make me sterile." Well, dude, I mean, are you really planning to have a family at this point in your life? Now, last year, I don't think Sturgis turned out to be a super spreader event. Here's a comment from Jerry. My thing is, though, how can you beat it by getting the vaccine if you could still get COVID even if you're vaccinated? Because, Jerry, if you're vaccinated, you're not going to the hospital. I mean, there are a few cases where people do go to the hospital, but not in as large in numbers. This is the danger zone here. And this is why the nurses and the doctors are so overworked. This is why, there are EMS services that pick somebody up and they don't know where to take the patient. What if that's your loved one? What if that's your kid in the EMS vehicle and they don't know where to take your kid? And your kid needs to get to the hospital like right now. The danger is the beds are filled up with people who are not vaccinated. That's a fact. There are people who need to be in the hospital, but those beds are taken up. And this is 100% preventable. 100% preventable with the vaccine. Jack says, I would like to know how many trumpers would get the flu shot if he really came out for it? Jack, I think the answer to that is obvious, and it's sad. And even though when he was President Trump got the vaccine, at first it was kind of hidden. And it was almost as if this is kind of a secret. Because again, it feeds the base that thinks it's a hoax, that still thinks it's a big deal about nothing. And so when you've got politicians, DeSantis, Abbott, when you've got politicians feeding this misinformation and using scare tactics to excite the base, you come to the sad realization that politics is about getting elected. It's not about telling the truth. It's not about being honest. It's about getting elected and getting reelected. Dr. Jennifer Avegno, New Orleans Public Health, she thanked the citizens of New Orleans for getting us to this point. 75% of the adult population in the city has had at least one dose. The promise of bringing an end to the pandemic during the summer of 2021 is over. It's not going to happen. It's not over. And I guess the really scary thing is we don't see anything in sight that is going to be a benchmark moment when this is going to come to an end. We don't know yet. I mean, I guess if we all really pulled together and got vaccinated and wore masks and started fighting amongst ourselves, if we would just make the simple sacrifice of doing what we need to do, it would be over. And for those who have questioned, well, what are the long-term effects of the vaccine? We don't know. Well, it's true we don't know. But we do know some of the long-term effects of getting COVID. And it can have a residual effect on the body and stay with the body. And especially with younger people, it can impact their brains and their breathing after they get well. And that's something that doctors are saying may stay with them the rest of their lives. So we know actually a little more about the negative impact of not getting the vaccine over any negative impact of getting the vaccine. Harry says, do you have to be fully vaccinated or just start the process? Harry, I think you have to be fully vaccinated or have the negative test. So if you had a card and you had one shot, for example, if you wanted to go to the Better Than Ezra concert tomorrow, Saturday at House of Blues, and you got one shot, I don't think that's going to be good enough. And even with the Johnson and Johnson vaccine, there's a waiting period before you know that you're safe. So unless you're fully vaccinated, then I think you would have to show that you have tested negative for COVID-19 within 72 hours of whatever event that it is that you're going to. Let's see. Dr. Avegno at the press conference said it's hard to predict when we're going to come out of this. And it is, and there's no insight in sight right now. Derek wants to know, I feel the hospitals should not treat unvaccinated people and make them stand by their own decisions. Am I wrong for feeling that way? I had a caller to my show today who felt badly about having that opinion. And I echoed the opinion on the show this afternoon, saying that if you decide not to get vaccinated and somebody decided to get vaccinated and both of you need to go to the hospital, the person who got vaccinated should get preferential treatment. If you're going to the hospital for COVID, if somebody's going to the hospital and they got vaccinated, they should have preferential treatment, in my opinion. And again, I mentioned earlier that Gene Simmons of KISS said, if you're not vaccinated, I don't care what happens to you. And that seems really cold and brutal, but that's the way a lot of people feel. And it's a shame we don't do more to show that we actually, care about each other, that we're willing to make sacrifices. Also, the mayor pointed out, and Dr. Avegno pointed this out as well, if you call 311, you can get a lot of information on COVID, treating COVID in New Orleans. The mayor said that enforcement will begin. In the past, the city has not been consistent with enforcement. And rules were set up, mandates were established, but there really wasn't enforcement. There should be enforcement. And I mean, there was some enforcement, but there should be more enforcement. And it has to be fair. It can't be selective. It has to be consistent. And I guess the thing that we're all waiting for is, well, what about Saints games? Well, here's what I'm getting from this. And again, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but here's what I get from this. In saying that to go to a sports complex or a concert, or an event, that's like a game, a football stadium, you're going to have to show that you're fully vaccinated. I'm okay with that. I've got my card. And you still have a chance to get vaccinated and get your card before the beginning of the season. At least we have a sense of control, because last year, nobody could go. You could have done all the right things and you couldn't go. Well, now, if you get the vaccination, and I think you can also show a negative COVID test within 72 hours of kickoff, you'll be able to go. And, as somebody who feels like he's done the right thing, look, it doesn't mean I'm not going to get it. So far, I've been fortunate. I haven't gotten it. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to get it. But being fully vaccinated, I'm confident that if I do get it, I'm going to live. And I'm not going to get that sick to where I end up in the hospital. Again, there are exceptions to everything in life. Nothing is 100% guaranteed. And so this quest for Well, sometimes you still get it if you're vaccinated. So what? Not many people have that issue. And once again, going back to the statistics, 80 to 95% of the deaths are from unvaccinated people. 80 to 95% of the deaths are from unvaccinated people. So if you get vaccinated, you've got some pretty good odds in your favor. You know, relating it to the Saints, I mean, you'd feel pretty good if you thought the Saints had an 80 to 95% chance of winning a game if they did something. Well, then they should do that. The Ole Miss football program under their relatively new coach Lane Kiffin, fully vaccinated. The entire team, the entire coaching staff, everybody involved with the team in Oxford at Ole Miss is vaccinated. And Lane Kiffin was on the news earlier today talking about this, and he made a comment about how there were some questions asked, and they brought in medical people to talk to the players and the parents that had questions, and they convinced them to get the vaccine. You can come up with whatever excuse you want to come up with. You can. But that doesn't make the vaccine less effective. And I'm reading that Lollapalooza in Chicago, which recently happened, that this was not a super spreader event. But here's what happened with Lollapalooza. To get into Lollapalooza, you had to show that you were fully vaccinated or that you had a negative COVID-19 test within the last 72 hours. So if well over 100,000 people got together for Lollapalooza in Chicago, and it was not a super spreader event, and those were the rules, then the rules work. So, you know, get the vaccination. And again, the question of a fake ID was raised. Don't fake it. Oh, you might get away with it, but the FBI is going to get involved if you get caught, and that's not pretty. They're the feds. Here's a says, thank you, Scoot. Just in case nobody. Oh, well, okay, Jack. Thank you. Look, you know, we do what we can, and I love to have fun on the radio and on social media. I love to have a good time, but sometimes we have a responsibility, and I think right now the most responsible thing that I can do, and there are others on the station doing the same thing, and that is promote the idea: just get the vaccination. You know, be political about other stuff, but not this. Jane says, what is infuriating is false vaccination cards. I know someone who has them and passed them into Mexico and then back into the United States using them. There will always be cheaters. There will always be those who cheat. So even though some people are going to cheat, it doesn't mean we shouldn't really enforce the rules. It doesn't mean we shouldn't enforce what we know. And here's what we know. The numbers don't lie, and facts show the vaccine works. Facts show that wearing a mask, social distancing, washing your hands, all the stuff you did in the beginning, the numbers show that works. The question is whether or not more people are willing to make the sacrifice, to take the effort to do what works. And only time will tell. I have faith that we're going to get through this. We've been through 3 before. We'll get through this. And I'm so looking forward to being at a Saints game. I'm Scoot. Thank you for joining us on WWL Radio, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you for your questions.